It looks like you got it live.
Yep. Give me just a minute. A couple of your colleagues are having a hard time logging in.
Okay.
Okay. I might need you to come over here and show me how to make you the host again. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I have something to ask you. When you add your name to join my campaign, it's sort of a long way to go for going to defeat Donald Trump for the Republicans in November.
Okay, Lee.
Yes.
It's Tina. There's a message.
Yes.
Your network bandwidth is low. It's on your screen.
Okay. All right. But it's not showing that to me. It looks like so far so good. Thank you though, Tina.
Okay.
The worst thing that could happen is somebody else would have to take over the meeting.
Okay. We're just trying to get Karen on. Just one more minute.
Hey, Colin, let's get going.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Want to begin this meeting, call to order the meeting of August 3rd, 2020. And first, I want to start out by saying I hope everybody had a very relaxing July. I know that Colin didn't, but everybody else hopefully did. And I'm going to start out the meeting by kind of giving the overall as far as how to participate. And if you're listening or watching the meeting through the webinar format, please use the raise your hand function when you want to speak. And that's done simply by clicking on the participant icon in the Zoom toolbar and look for the raise your hand button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Those of you who are viewing the meeting through the webinar may also comment via that chat function. If you are watching through Facebook Live and would like to comment, please call the call-in number at 1-312-626-6799 and use the meeting ID of 891-4336-8721. And Colin, I hope all that information as far as Facebook is given somewhere, is it?
Yes.
They have to rely on just that notice. Okay, all right. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is do the roll call. And Member Certain,
Here.
Member Clark,
Here.
Member Cole Smith,
Here.
Member Cornell,
Probably still in the
Member
county
Hart?
commission.
probably. Member Hart
Here.
here. Member Labarta,
Here.
Member Snyder,
Here.
Member Twombly,
Here.
Member Wilson Bullard,
Here.
and I'm here as well. So the first thing to do is the approval of the agenda, and also that would be the consent agenda as well. So if anybody would like to make a motion or they want to have a question, this would be the time to raise those concerns and or make a motion.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. So a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public discussion? Colin, you have to help me on the public part.
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor of the Member Certain,
Aye.
Member Clark,
Aye.
Member Cole Smith,
Aye.
Member Cornell, Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Labarta,
Aye.
Member Snyder,
Aye. Aye.
Member Twombly,
Aye.
Member Wilson Bullard,
Aye.
and I. Okay. Let's see. Got the consent agenda, the executive director report. Colin.
Happy August, everybody.
Mhm.
I hope you had a great month of July. I think we were able to get quite a bit done over the last month, but there's still quite a bit to do. I've attached my notes, so I'm not going to read through all those. I'll be happy to take some questions at the end. I do, however, want to point out a few things that I think are important. First of all, I want to welcome some new staff. Ashley Morgan Daniel has joined the team as the new executive assistant, and she'll also be performing clerk of the trust duties. She's here. I'm not sure if she can say hello because she is diligently running two computers trying to make sure the meeting goes smoothly. But I'm really thrilled she's here. She comes to us from the City of Gainesville Auditor's Office. And before that, she worked at UF. And then before that, she was over in the United Kingdom. So again, I'm thrilled to have her, and I think you'll enjoy getting to know her. Part of her duties will include assuming responsibility for organizing these meetings and making sure that you're aware of when the meetings are, whether they'll be live or virtual, their location, all of that. And So as she assumes those duties, she's actually going to be sending out some new calendar invites directly from her so she can keep track of all of that. And I will be deleting or canceling calendar invites for me. I just want to make you aware of that. So when you start to receive all these cancels and invites tomorrow, you'll know what the reason is for that. But I think overall, things will go much more smoothly. The other thing I wanted to point out for this meeting is that I'm excited that this will be our first finance report. Jennifer's really done a great job. I don't want to steal her thunder, but one of the reasons she was such a terrific addition to the team is that her background, she really understands what it takes to run a tight ship and make sure that we're doing everything right. She has spent a tremendous amount of time getting us organized so that we can move forward, and also reorganizing a lot of things that were done before she's got here. But again, I don't want to steal too much of what she's going to say, but we are looking forward to some feedback on the type of financial information you want us to regularly report on going forward. But I just think she's done a great job. This meeting is also important because this is basically the human resources meeting. All of the three main agenda items for action, the employee handbook, the classification and pay plan, and the Florida retirement system all work together. One of the things I have been trying to communicate over the past few months is that giving out money, government funds especially, and making sure they're spent properly is pretty hard work. And to do it with the expectation that all of you have requires an infrastructure of excellent people. So the handbook, the pay plan, the Florida retirement system, and the policies that are proposed all go towards allowing us to be competitive and recruiting really a high quality team. I know that there's a lot of material, and I'm sure as you look through it, you will look through the handbook and think that some of the policies are too loose or too strict, or some of the benefits are generous or not generous enough. We're open to any revisions, but we tried to do the best job we could to put something in front of you that we felt you would feel comfortable with moving forward, so we can start filling these spots and putting a team together so that we can start getting some quality programming out to children in the community. I also wanted to take a minute and just lay the groundwork for the next meeting as well. Some of the feedback I've gotten is that I know all of you have other lives, so you're not constantly thinking of the Children's Trust in between meetings. So I've been encouraged to, repeat and remind when it's appropriate. And I think for the next meeting, the workshop, right now is scheduled for 3 p.m. on the 17th. It'll be a virtual meeting just like this. But there were really 3 goals for that meeting. The first goal was to review the current funding portfolio, all the programs that we're currently funding. The second goal was to determine the key indicators for each of the results areas. And then the third goal was to see if there were any opportunities where we could get started to creatively disrupt some of the systems that are out there. So concerning the portfolio review, tomorrow we will do a preview with all of the funded agencies. So they'll get to hear it first and give some feedback before we present it to all of you. I just wanted to make sure that everyone, knew the intent. We want to make sure that, the intent is not to criticize any, program or agency. Everyone's doing the best they can, especially under the current conditions. But we did want to show, kind of break out for you the exact activities that you were, that you are funding, so that you were clear, the age groups, the type of programs, in a little bit different way than maybe you've seen them in the past. I think that you'll see then when it comes to measuring the outputs and outcomes of the programs that there is some measurement going on, but there's also some gaps in some areas to improve. And whether or not we continue to fund all of those programs or some of those programs or completely new programs, it's going to be important upfront as part of any funding process that we're very clear on the how much, the how wells, and the better offs that we want from the beginning. And that, again, as I said, it takes some infrastructure and planning to do that. But I think all in all, you'll find that the portfolio review is pretty routine and uncontroversial, but I also think you'll find it very informative. The next section of that meeting on the 17th, and that'll take up most of the time, you'll be asked to narrow down the list of indicators from each of the results areas that you think we should focus on for future programming. And we'll send you in advance the materials sometime next week, so you have plenty of time to look over them. I've also been asked from at least one of you to send out the lists of data points and indicators and focus areas of some of the other children's service councils, which I'll have. But I want to remind you that ultimately the goal from that portion of the meeting, and I'm assuming that'll be most of the discussion, will be to start to move towards some strategies that we can begin to fund to address some of the areas where that we might think need improvement. That's really the whole point, is to begin to make some funding decisions. And I know that 6 months in, I was hoping we'd be farther along in that process, frankly. But setting up the organization and the pandemic has slowed things back. So I know that we've kind of been building the plane as we're flying it. We're trying to catch up. And I know that the agencies feel that way too. I get a lot of questions, especially now that the requests for extensions are coming in, as far as when will the next funding opportunity be, to continue programs they like. And we don't have any answers yet, but one of the things I did suggest at the last meeting was that we look at some opportunities to support some quality programming throughout the whole system and out of school time before we invested a lot of additional dollars for seats or things like that. So I was very happy to watch the Boost Alliance meeting, where they had a presentation from the Weichert Center for Youth Program Quality. From what I can tell, it was very well received, just from the feedback I got while I was on the meeting. They're also offering several trainings right now around various topics with trust funding. But one of the things we figured out is that putting a sustained quality professional development effort around out of school time, it really is a systems building initiative. The challenge is to figure out where all the pieces fit. And right now, the out of school time network is very grassroots, but very loose. So that doesn't happen overnight. So stay tuned. Most children's services councils do fund some sort of quality efforts around out of school time, but typically it takes a while to figure out exactly how that's going to work. Another area, and probably more urgent, that it may be worth talking about at the meeting on the 17th, is how to support children as they return to school in the middle of the pandemic. I know the school board has had some really long meetings and some intense meetings around options for children as they return to school. So I'm not going to recite all of them here, but suffice it to say that there's many parents that would prefer to have their children stay home, not attend school, but still get some of the support to complete their work as they learn from home. And I can tell you, I'm pretty sympathetic to that idea, because when the school district where my kids attended school last year flipped a switch and made everyone stay home, my wife and I were suddenly found with 5 children and having to manage their online schooling. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be able to pay the lady next door, who was an out-of-work hairstylist, to sit with my youngest 2, a second grader and a kindergartner at the time, to help them through, because I couldn't do it. But I had the means to pay someone. So I'm well aware of the concerns that many of our most vulnerable children in the community don't have that option. There has been a lot of reporting around the country where parents are organizing small groups of pods or at-home guided learning experiences with some sort of teacher facilitator. And I know that many people in the community think that some of the most vulnerable children, should have that option as well. I have to be honest, when I think about Children's Services Council supporting in-school learning, I wince a little bit. It seems like that should be something districts should support, but what I found out is that around the state, many of the other children's services councils are funding similar support. So, for example, Miami was putting together some special funding towards that initiative. In Palm Beach, they're funding some at-home learning through school readiness dollars for kids up to 12 years old through the Early Learning Coalition. Martin County and Broward County are working on ways to redirect some of their after-school funds towards these types of supports. And St. Lucie County is actually receiving CARES dollars from their county commission to fund some of these pods. So most of these funding supports are really committed through the first 9 weeks of school. But right now, I've had at least, the reason I bring this up is because I got 3 separate requests in the month of July for after-school providers to talk about some of their unused dollars and some of their contract extension dollars towards using it towards some of these to support some kids that are learning digitally. And a few of them have funds that could be redirected from their current contract, but some don't. But because I've been asked to raise the issue, I wanted to bring that to your attention. And if that's something, we would, choose to pursue, or you wanted some more concrete plans, it would be something we would have to discuss at the next meeting. The other item that on the agenda that we should probably discuss a little bit at the next meeting is the Pritzker Children's Initiative. We have been awarded that grant, and the grant agreement is being reviewed. I can have more to say on the details on the next meeting as far as the deliverables, but they're pretty excited and would like to get, working with us pretty quickly. And then on to the 31st. So that's the 17th. On to the 31st, the main action item to address would be our procurement policy. I'm not going to say much more into that now, but that'll pretty much take us through the public hearings in September. One last issue for this meeting is that today is my a 6-month anniversary to the day. I started February 3rd, it's August, and as part of my agreement, I'm supposed to have a residence in Alachua County. I have one, but it's not ready for me to move into, and it won't be ready for another few weeks. So I've asked the chair to entertain a motion at the end of the meeting to put an amendment on my contract, giving me another 8 weeks, which is frankly should be more than enough time to get moved in to where I'll be. So that's it for me. That was a little bit, but I'll be happy to.
Instead of waiting for the end of the meeting, why don't we go ahead and do that now?
Okay,
So
that's fine.
if anybody has any comments about Colin's request, otherwise, can we get a motion to extend his resident requirement another 8 weeks?
I'll make that motion. This is Maggie.
I'll second it as Tina.
Have a motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public discussion? Colin?
I don't see
Any
any.
public discussion?
I don't see any.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay. It was unanimous, Colin.
That's good.
All right.
Might have been a short.
The budget review.
Lee, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said, Lee. If you're coming in and out, would you repeat that, please?
About the budget review, about Colin.
Oh, okay.
Which one?
I heard what you said then when you repeated it the first time. I couldn't. Thank you for repeating.
Okay. So Colin, who's doing the budget review?
Jennifer, and I think she's unmuted and ready to go.
Okay. Jennifer?
Okay, so hello. So what you see before you is a snapshot of the income statement, and the report that I'm presenting to you now is just a snapshot of everything in that particular report. You'll see number one, the statutory financial reports. It's just the total of expenditures for the quarter, total revenue for the quarter, statement of funds on hand, total administrative costs. And then number two is aid to private organizations. Number three, the June monthly transaction report. And then as it relates to internal controls, Colin has sort of mentioned some of the things that I've worked on and currently working on. One of them is a provider handbook. This handbook provides guidance to the agencies on our policies and procedures when they're submitting their monthly reimbursement requests. We also held a orientation that was well attended, and that was held on June 21st. We utilized video production, and I think we also uploaded an orientation video so that people can go back and refer to it. Some of the barriers and areas of impact includes vendor management, purchase orders, and encumbrances. Apparently, the RFA 937 awards, they were actually entered into CTAC's environment, the ERP environment, through the GL, meaning there was an account set up, but there may or may not have been vendors set up or purchase orders, encumbrances, et cetera. So we're actually working through that now. And I'm also auditing all the contracts just to make sure that they're congruent with what we have in the system. And our goal is to establish strong internal controls and also ensure that monthly invoice reimbursements adhere to our prompt payment policy. And also we have good news regarding our fiscal assistant. We have hired someone who will be starting on August 10th. And with this person on board, it should actually expedite the aforementioned. So I welcome any feedback on any data inclusion and the frequency of reports that you'd like to see or any other data you'd like to see.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Questions? Colin? Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, we'll move into the action portion of the
You're welcome.
agenda. And the first thing that we want to is the adoption resolution 2020-8 for the employee handbook. Before we get that, are there any questions? Colin, are there any?
No. Nope.
Did you have a chance to look to see about the sick time? About what I thought I read in the handbook about the 500 hours?
Yes, I did. Do you want to talk about that now or after a motion's made? It's okay with me. You might want to just recite the question so everyone knows what we're talking about.
I had a question about currently there in the handbook, the employee handbook, there was the portion that said that the employee was allowed to kind of bank at least up to 500 hours to get paid when they leave. And I had kind of a problem with that. Sickness is supposed to be used for sickness, be it for you or for for your family. And while I certainly don't have a problem with them, I don't want them to lose that time if they should ever need it while they're employed, but I certainly don't think that that's something that they should be paid for as a exit from employment. So when Colin and I discussed the issue, it was expressed to me that shouldn't have been in there. So I don't know what exactly the policy should have been. So Colin, do you know what should have been in there?
Yeah, so let me, I think when we talked, I didn't have the book in front of me, and I borrowed a lot of the benefits section from the county. And the county is much more complex because they have lots of different types of employees, and some are under different types of plans. So the county actually had a more robust sick leave policy than this one. Employees prior to 2011 got even more benefits than this. This sick leave policy doesn't give anybody any sick days when they leave unless they've been here 10 years. So if you're here 9 years, 8 years, 7 years, all the way down, you get nothing. And this one is if you're up to 1,000 hours, the most you can get is half, which I think is no more than 500. So, which is exactly what the county has. I'm okay with taking it out because, like I said, it doesn't impact anyone until they've worked here more than 10 years. It would just be one thing that would make us a little bit less competitive if someone was trying to pick one more than another. But that's not one I'd really, die on. I think what you had said you'd preferred also, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe something where there was some kind of banking or sharing sick leave if someone got into some kind of, and that we don't have, so that we could bring back some language and add, and we're gonna have to add to this anyways, because there's some benefits we're still not done negotiating, but I'm personally, I'm okay with that policy because no one gets it unless they've been here for 10 years. But if it's removed, again, that wouldn't be something I would be that concerned with either.
Well, I'll finish up by saying, okay, Ken.
Oh, I can wait for you if you want.
That's fine.
Okay. So
I'm supposed to talk last.
Oh, okay.
I'm supposed to talk last.
I saw the leave policy and I didn't raise a question about it because, like Colin said, you have to work 10 years to get it. And the counterbalance to the reason I didn't have a problem with it is because if with having sick leave and vacation, if someone's going to separate from us and they can't, they're not going to get paid for it, and they know they're planning to separate service from us, what will end up happening is, or what I've seen happen over my professional career, is that folks will just start trying to tinker down their leave time because they feel like they earned it and they don't want to leave it on the books. And so pretty much, like as Colin said, I think the county, that's their policy. And I'm not sure if UF has moved away from that, but that used to be like a UF policy also, where you got paid for part of it. The city of Gainesville, what they do, if you separate from service after and you're vested in their pension plan, your sick leave rolls into time of service, years of service. So you don't get paid for it, but it gets credited towards your service time that you've worked for the city of Gainesville. So you kind of like get a little benefit from it, in the sense that if you had 2,000 hours of sick time or 2,040, that's like the equivalent of 1 year of service. And that's kind of a way that they get people not, to me, it seems like people don't abuse it when they're getting ready to separate. But for folks who have not vested in the pension plan or the retirement system that they're in, what I've seen them do is that they kind of like call out. So they're like working, but they're not working because they start calling out to kind of burn up their sick time. So that's something also that we want to consider. But that's all I had to say.
Lee, I find that amount incredibly high compared to the private sector. I can't compare it to governmental entities, which this certainly is, but I find that number really, really high.
Which number, Maggie? The 1,000
The
hours?
500, the payout of 500 hours. I mean, that's just higher than any place I know of by a lot.
And the way the state
Anyone
does
else?
it is, the state allows for a quarter of your sick leave to be paid when you leave up to 240 hours. So basically you have to have banked 1,400 to get paid out the full 240 hours. But it does, it's still, you don't lose it, but you only get paid out a quarter of it, up to 240.
And that's more typical.
For the state.
Ken,
yeah,
are you
for the
raising your
county.
hand? Welcome. I'll just say, this is something I brought up while I was on the commission, that it's my belief that you're doing people, you're respecting the fact that you're trying to give them, when they're sick, you don't want them at work, so you pay them. And it's my belief that, that it shouldn't be used as a financial benefit later on as you're walking out the door. And, if y'all come up with some number, I'm not going to fall on the sword on this, but, I tried at the county and I don't know that, I don't remember being overly successful. But, my plan would be you always, whatever time you've accumulated, you're allowed to use, so that in, God forbid, in some incident where you need an awful lot of time, or a family member, that you have that time and you will get paid for it. But it's not something that you get when you walk out the door. So, if somebody wants to craft something or send it back to Colin when you make the motion, that's fine. But the other part of it is we have to be responsible to the people who are paying this, which is a taxpayer, and many of them don't get this benefit. And I think that that's something that we always need to be mindful of as we make our decisions. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve them with bracketing off the amount of paid sick leave on separation until Colin has some opportunity to get some research on what might be a more reasonable amount. But other than that, I would move that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion with the exception of the sick leave policy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Do we have any public discussion?
Lee, I was gonna say, I'm inclined to leave it as it is because of the trust being kind of associated so closely with the county. I don't think it, well, I don't know. For me, I didn't think it was excessive because, as Colin said, you work 1 to 9 years, it's a non-issue. Whatever you have in your sick leave balance, when you separate, nothing happens to it. It's not an issue until after 10 years of service. And I didn't work as many years as Dr. Labardi did in private sector, but at my former company, we had 1 leave balance. We didn't have 2. So that's why when I saw it, for me, what's in the employee manual that's proposed is it's aligning with the local governments that we have in our county, with the city and the county, where they have two balances. But when I worked for a private sector company, we had one leave balance. They call it the pay time off. And the days, you got so many sick days per year that went in there. And when you separate it, they paid for a max of 280, which is what's the vacation. So I didn't have a separate balance. But like I said before, when you work at the city of Gainesville, when I worked there, your sick leave went towards time of service if you were invested employee. And I know the county plan is what is kind of in here because my husband works is a county employee. So that's why I didn't see that to me. And I think it may cause some confusion if we bring on employees, we'll have to say, we're almost like the county, but we're not as a concerned leave, which is, it's fine if that's what the majority wants to do, but I don't think it's excessive in the sense of what's being offered here locally.
Okay. Any further discussion? Colin, is there any public discussion?
I don't see any public comment, but I have my hand up and this is not about sick leave.
Oh, okay.
member Twombly, and I don't want to speak for her, but she emailed me. And I can she sent me a concern about section 2.2, which had to do with employee records and how available to the public they are, personnel files. And so I looked into that, and there's the attorney that helped draft this has given some alternative language for section 2.2 that addresses all the public record requirements. So should you vote to pass this, I would just request that the motion be not the language in the handbook, but the new language the attorney has given me that addresses the public records concern.
Thank you, Colin.
Okay.
Welcome.
Does the maker of the motion accept that?
I do.
Okay, and the seconder?
I think Judge Bullock seconded
Okay.
it.
I do.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion is unanimous. And
Mr. Chair,
next item would be, yes,
so we approved everything in the handbook except 4.2, the sick leave section, and I'm supposed to come back with something else for that, correct?
correct.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we substituted
And the
the
public record.
language for the records.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next thing would be the adoption of the resolution 2020-9 employee classification and compensation plan. Colin?
Okay, give me just a second to pull up the motion. It's a lot of paper this week. All right. So this motion, the trust is really asked to do 5 things. And I'll talk about them after I read them in just a second. Number 1 is accept the findings of the classification and compensation study draft report as final. 2, approve the recommended pay plan on page 6 of the report as the pay plan for the Children's Trust to be effective 10/1/2020. Number 3 is approve the position classifications on page 7 of the report, effective 10/1/2020. Number 4 is authorize the executive director to advertise and hire the positions in the report as shown on the organizational chart included with this item. And number 5, approve resolution 2020-9, which is chapter 5, human resource policies. So that's the motion I would ask for. And just a quick, so I can shut up first and see if anyone wants to make that motion before I discuss any details or however you'd like me to proceed.
I think that, I know that you don't want to do this, Colin, but it would probably be helpful if you repeated it.
Okay. So let me just go one by one. Accept the findings of the classification and compensation study draft report as final. Originally, back last June, when the trust decided to authorize hiring of employees, it was given 3 options, A, B, and C, and essentially you chose option B, which was the employees would essentially be under the Board of County Commissioners, but not subject to any of their policies. Then you opted into their policies through the interlocal agreement, but at some point you said you would come up with your own. And part of that is having some kind of classification and pay plan. And we tried to use the counties, but Ms. Akpan, the Human Resources Director, recognized that the county's classification system, because of the number and diversity of employees, is so much more complicated than what we needed. So she recommended a consultant where we went out and got our own. And essentially an employee class, the consultant's on the phone, by the way, and if there's additional questions, he's available to answer them. But the study was done by the Mercer Group, and essentially what they do is they take the functions of the job based on 10 job factors that they have, and based on the amount of freedom, decision-making ability, the types of work, and they assign a number or a classification to those employees. And then those classifications fall within different bands on the pay plan. So I asked him to do that study for us, to take our 10 positions and gave him not a job description, but per his job factors, a description of the type of activities and work that they would do. And he came up with the pay plan and the classification system, which is all explained in the report. And part of coming up with the pay plan is to survey other agencies, and he listed the other agencies that he surveyed in there. And the overall goal was to make sure that for any classification, we were right in the middle. In other words, we weren't the highest, but we weren't the lowest. So you'll find some places where similar classifications, if they went and applied somewhere else, they'd make more money, but some places they'd make less. So all that to say, all of that is the context of the report. So I would ask that, we accept the report, the classification system for the jobs, the jobs that we have discussed are in there, and the pay plan. And the pay plan is the 15 various lines with a bottom, minimum, middle, and then maximum salary in there. That you adopt that as our pay plan for the trust, and that I be able to then go ahead and, based on the classifications, get job descriptions developed and to begin to hire out the rest of those positions. And then the last part, number 5, the human resource policies. If you figure the employee handbook covers what happens when we hire somebody, and the classification and pay plan is kind of the structure on what we look for when we hire someone, the human resource policies set all of the parameters before they get hired. How we advertise, how we, where we make job offers, and things like that. So we kind of got the before, the middle, and then, after they're hired, covered between the last resolution that you approved and then this one. So that is pretty much the overview. And then I'll be happy to, answer any questions about the pay plan, or turn it over to Mr. Robertson, who's on the phone as well.
Lee, I'll move staff recommendation. Sounds great.
Second, Tina.
Can't hear you, Lee. You're on mute.
Lee, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Any public discussion?
I don't see it.
Lee, I had my hand up. This is Dr. Pat Snyder.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It's okay. I just was wondering, Colin, I appreciated that information as I was looking through it. I was wondering why, if this is something that's going to be a permanent policy or handbook that's available in the trust, why the executive director wasn't included in the pay grades. I just think that moving forward, that might be helpful for us, down the road. So I guess it could be added down the road, but it might be helpful to have as part of this document as well.
We have a separate agreement for.
Correct.
Yeah. Pat, that's something that's done between the board and the CEO. That
So do
one's
we
kinda
have that
handled
somewhere in our
differently
policy?
from everything else.
Do we have that somewhere in our manual then? That's the process that we use?
I don't know that that's the case, and if it's not, maybe it should be in there.
If it's going to become a public document, it might be
directors-
important to reference that in this document, that it's somewhere else for people.
It should definitely.
Okay. Got that, Colin?
I think so.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Dr. Snyder said when she started. It kind of went in and out. Was she saying like that the executive director's contract should be part of the handbook? I'm trying to follow. That's it. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry, because it was like the internet connection.
Yeah. Tina, what she said was that there was no mention of the executive director in as far as the compensation study. And she thought that it might be a good idea that it be included. And then we said that that's something that's negotiated between the board and the executive director. And then from that, we determined that it might be a real good idea if it was included in the compensation study, just something that that the executive director's compensation and benefit package is negotiated between the board and the executive director.
Okay, thank you.
So the public will know.
I thought she said the contract or whatever. That's what I didn't get that. I'm sorry. Thank you for that clarifying.
So if the maker of the motion would be kind enough to include that change, that would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, Lee.
Okay.
Second, that's
and
fine.
the seconder.
Yeah, that's fine. Second.
Okay. All right. Okay. So all those in favor of the motion say aye. Did I ask for the public input?
Aye, yeah,
You did.
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Okay. The next item would be the becoming a member of the FRS. Colin?
This is extremely straightforward. Right now, trust employees participate in the Florida retirement system under the Board of County Commissioners, and we pay all the costs. What this would do is this would set us up as our own entity. And the only thing that's important to know is that once you join, that's it. So there will be no trust setting up its own retirement plan sometime in the future. Once you're in the FRS, you're in. You can set up supplemental plans such as deferred comp and all of that, which, you know, we'll be bringing some of those back to the trust in subsequent meetings. But this would give us our own allocation in the Florida retirement system. And this would allow me to fill out all the paperwork we need to fill out to join.
I move to accept staff recommendation.
Okay. Any questions?
Second,
Thank you, Tina. Motion is second. Any discussion? Any public discussion?
No,
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Motion is unanimous, Colin. Okay, the next item would be board member comments. Anybody have anything they would like to share with the board?
Real quickly, sorry I was late. We approved the CARES Act application, so individuals will be able to start applying tomorrow. Small businesses a week from today, and interagencies 2 weeks from today. And the Children's Trust is in there for some amount. So Colin, if you and Michelle are not in touch, y'all get together because there's some money there.
So, which brings up the discussion that we had earlier during the executive director's report about the, Colin, when you were saying what other districts did as far as the pods, is that something that should be discussed with the county commission?
I actually don't know the answer to that. I can find out by the next meeting. I know I asked Jennifer to look into that. I don't want to put her on the spot because I didn't ask her to bring this up, but we can certainly discuss it between now and the next trust meeting.
Okay. I mean, that seems like a very logical.
Yeah, and what I would say is if you need more or whatever support we can provide, Colin, don't be afraid to ask. Part of the motion that I added today was that staff is to give us a complete summary of all the funds that have been dispersed by the first week of September and bring back any recommendations for reallocations of money based on need. So, you know, we've got to help as much as we can, the school board right now, and to the extent the trust can lean in on that, please do and just, let us know how the county can help.
Tina, did you want to say something?
I did. I read the letter from Colin that he shared with us from the Boost group, as well as his little explanation to us during his report. And I do like the idea. And I was wondering if, as a board, we would agree to Colin reaching out to this particular group, and possibly this would be a good collaboration between the Boost Alliance for them to set up the pods to be able to work. And it seems like there may be some funds allocated towards some of the things that they outlined in there, possibly that they would need some help with. So I'm kind of in favor of it. I like that idea that it gives an option to people that possibly wouldn't have that option or don't have the resources to get into something like that on their own. I'm not sure.
So Tina, are you saying that you think it would be a good idea to talk with the county commission?
I think it would be a good idea to
For
talk
us
with
to
the county
talk?
commission. Yes, the trust to talk with the county commission as well as the submitters of this particular proposal.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair,
So,
in
any
addition,
further discussion you want?
yes, Lee, it's Karen. Just to
Yes.
let the group know, some of our staff, school board staff, has met with some folks with Boost to have some initial discussions surrounding this. And so I think, and again, I don't want to, and I'm glad Bob's on here. I know a couple of us, obviously money can't come directly to the district, and I don't want to, overstep with what we're allowed to do as representatives to the trust. But it's something that we would certainly support because we do have families that would like to have their children participate in some sort of digital learning experience, but maybe don't have the supervision during the day that the children would need to have. And I know that there are some private groups that are already advertising for small group sessions. And that obviously is serving folks that right now have the financial ability to be able to pay that for their families. And so I think this would give us some great opportunities for our students as part of that work with some of these private providers who, may have not had a full battery of opportunity to serve their students as they had thought prior to going into COVID. And so that could certainly help support the providers as well through this process. So I agree and I support this idea.
Okay. So is this something, Tina, perhaps you would like to refer this item to Colin?
I'll refer to it in a motion, you mean?
It's formed a motion?
Okay.
Yes.
I would recommend that staff would explore more the collaboration with the Boost Alliance and the school district for pursuing the pods idea of digital learning going forward.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. In that,
As well as
Tina,
the
do you
county, I'm
want
sorry.
him to do research?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. And the county and even the Children's Trust.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's
I mean,
see,
I think,
let's
Tina, if you
see.
could ask that he just bring back a recommendation at our next meeting. I think time's of the essence here.
Okay. Well, I move that staff will bring back a recommendation at our next meeting for how we can move forward with this pods idea, collaboration between the trust, Alachua County, Board of County Commission, School Board, and Boost Alliance.
Seconder, agree with that?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Okay. All right. All three of y'all. So is there any discussion?
Dr. Hart has had her hand up also, Lee.
Okay.
Uh,
Dr. Hart, I
Karen-
apologize.
Well, that's okay. Karen may have answered this question, but I seem to remember when we started with the Children's Trust, there was some prohibition of supporting activities that happened during the school day. And what Karen said is the school district can't accept money directly from the trusts. But I just want to make, I don't object to doing this. I think this COVID thing is an extraordinary circumstance. We need to be very creative. I just want to make sure we're not breaking any rule or statute or whatever. And then I do have a comment related
And
to
that's why the And that's why a recommendation to do the research is a great motion. So any further discussion? Any public discussion?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion?
Wait a minute. We do have a public comment. We have
Okay,
two.
thank you.
Dr. Deidre Housen has her hand up. Can you let her in?
Okay.
She's in.
Dr.
Housen,
Housen,
you're muted.
good afternoon.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Doing great. Yes.
Wonderful. So we wrote a letter to this with regard to equitable learning pods. And I'm just wondering if that was something that was going to be read in public comments, and I wasn't sure if that was the letter that Board Member Burton was referring to a moment ago. If not, I would like to be able to have that letter entered in as public record.
Well, we'll be happy to put it in there because this is a direct response to that letter.
So for the public who are on the call, is it possible for us to read that letter so they know what we're referring to?
Colin, I do not have it in front of me.
I'll be happy to
If you
read
would
it.
like to read it, that would be.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy to read it in the general public comments portion after the board member comments.
Okay. All right. All right.
Lee,
Anything else, Dr. Hatchen?
That's it, thank you.
Lee,
Okay, thank you.
Rachel Eubanks also has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon.
Ms. Eubanks.
Yes, can everyone hear me okay? All right, thanks. I don't
Yes.
know if this is the time to just to support kind of what Colin had mentioned earlier in the meeting about, families being concerned with children doing virtual learning, but yet not having the support at home. Just being the director of programs here at the Early Learning Coalition and dealing with our 100+ providers on a daily basis, I will tell you that not only here in Alachua County, but throughout the state, it's a topic of discussion on a daily basis. We've got a lot of parents who have children who are school age yet, like mentioned, not old enough to stay home, yet parents need to go to work, and they feel as if a school setting maybe is too many children, and they feel a little bit more comfortable possibly having them attend a child care provider that they've known for years on end, taking care of their children. And so I'm happy to hear that Colin's looking forward in maybe ways that the Children's Trusts are working with other ELCs throughout the state to support this, because typically we have families who have children that are school age that are on a full-time, part-time schedule. So full-time in summers and non-breaks and holidays, and then when school starts, part-time. And I know it's being discussed throughout the state, but any additional support that may be able to be provided through the trust would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Okay. The next slide, any more comments from the board? Okay, and I guess we'll go into, it doesn't say it on here, but general public, yeah, it does.
We
General
gotta
public
vote on that,
comments.
Lee. Let's vote on that motion.
Oh, okay, thank you, Kim, appreciate it. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman,
Opposed? Yes.
we went out of order. Did you want to go through board member for the board comments and then go to public comments, or switch back? I just wanted
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I was asking, if there were more board member comments. Yes, Dr. Hart.
Hi, this is a comment related to are we calling it a workshop? Whatever our meeting is, it starts at 3 p.m. I don't know if everybody read all the materials, but one of the things I submitted to Colin and suggested that he share with the rest of us is a series of opinion editorials that I wrote and co-wrote with an expert on adverse childhood experiences in 2017. They appeared in the Gainesville Sun and in the Guardian. And the reason these are pertinent is because we're going to be talking about measurements and root causes and things like that. And I think if we're all on the same page about what these adverse childhood experiences are, it was actually raised in one of our previous meetings by one of our members of the public, Sherry Kitchens. It would be a really good idea for us to know what we're talking about. It was a very important topic to the group that made the initial funding decisions before the Children's Trust was voted on. So those are available for you to take a look at. And I just wanted to make sure you knew why we stuck those in there. Is that all right, Colin?
Thank you, Dr. Hart. Anyone else? Okay, now we'll go to the general public. Looking for comments from the general public. See anything, Colin?
I'm checking
And
if you
then after
played.
that, you can read the letter.
Yeah. I don't see any hands up, so people can certainly put their hand up, but let me go grab the letter real quick.
Okay.
Now I gotta find this letter. Let's see. Okay. The letter's dated August 3rd, 2020, and it reads as follows. This letter is to request a partnership with and funding from the Children's Trust, the Alachua County School District, out-of-school time providers, and community-based organizations to support the use of pandemic learning pods for our district's most economically and academically vulnerable students. We ask that a motion be made to fund pandemic learning pods with a strong emphasis on our recommendations. Pandemic learning pods. Pandemic learning pods are intentional small cohorts of children and responsible adults organized to support distance learning, socialization, and play. Pods provide an opportunity to minimize the risk for families who must return to work and thus require supervised environments for their children. Unfortunately, while learning pods provide the benefit of socialization, group learning, and flexibility for parents and children, they often exacerbate inequity, leaving those in our society who most need support with the only option of traditional brick and mortar schooling. There is another alternative. With the financial support of the Children's Trust and other funders, out-of-school time providers, community-based organizations, and faith-based organizations can collaborate to provide a safer, equity-based response to pandemic learning. The proposal. Fund a pilot program supporting pandemic learning pods for 64 economically marginalized and vulnerable students attending schools with a history of educational achievement gaps. Collaborate directly with ACPS to provide technology for each student in the pilot program. Priorities. For this effort, prioritize and target our most vulnerable families who would otherwise not have adequate supervision and would thus have to choose brick and mortar schooling. Prioritize students who do not have adequate internet or device access at home. Utilize community-based churches and community centers embedded as learning sites. Utilize out-of-school time programs, for example, ACEs in Motion, YMCA, Girls Plays, Kids Count, working within the communities as learning sites. Mitigate the need for transportation by pairing pods with sites in close proximity to parents' homes so that parents can transport children easily and access walking bicycle routes. The next category is equitable pandemic pod model. Staffing structure, 1 learning pod director, 1 learning pod site monitor, 12 site instructional staff, and 8 sanitation janitorial staff. Sites, 4 out-of-school time programs and 4 community-based churches. The curriculum would follow ACPS Digital Academy, preferred, or Alachua eSchool. School meals, technology, and cleaning supplies provided by ACPS. Parent recruitment, site recruitment, and parent liaisoning coordinated by Black Parents Support Network. liability insurance, human resource support, and staff training by Boost out of school time providers. Create a unified response model with professional development and instructional staff training protocols administered by the Children's Trust as it relates to safety, cleaning, and outbreaks. We urge you to provide a flexible response to the pandemic that is culturally responsive, community responsive, safe, and allows for sufficient contact tracing. Allow community-based churches and community centers to host learning pods as a way to assist families with minimizing transportation needs while maximizing bonds of trust and relationships. Allow learning pods to vary in size without penalty or reduction in funding. This will allow the opportunity to have best practice of contact tracing and best practices of contact tracing and safety to be implemented. Consider removing the requirement for DCF certification for sites. With proper oversight, safe practices, and background screenings, we can ensure locations are safe and monitored for this short-term responsive solution. Ensure that the cost per child or cost per learning pod will be derived from equitable learning pod model as noted above. Adopting this proposal will have the following benefits. Reduce the number of students on school campuses, allowing for more social distancing in cafeterias, hallways, and common areas during arrival, dismissal for recess. Reduce the number of students on buses to allow for social distancing. Reduce the number of teachers and support staff reporting to work in crowded school environments. Utilize the resources of community spaces embedded within marginalized communities. Allow students to be supervised by non-instructional staff while receiving digital instruction from teachers so that more classrooms can be used to reduce pod and class sizes. Provide working parents another option in their decision-making process of how to balance their work schedule with their child's educational and social emotional needs, and provide a model that can be increased to scale, thus mobilizing the cross-sector resources in Alachua County to provide the safest response to the pandemic possible. Sincerely, Addison Staples, Deidre Houchin, PhD, David Kaplan, PhD, Sarah Rockwell, PhD.
Thank you, Colin. Any other public input?
Yes, from Addison Staples.
Okay.
Let us get him in here. Hang on.
Ms. Staples?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for reading the letter aloud, Colin, and members of the board. Thank you for the public comment opportunity and supporting the motion made by board member Certain. I would had a couple of questions. When is the next Children's Trust meeting? Because depending if staff is coming back with recommendations based on research and out of school time, providers need to start making decisions and potentially even start hiring here in the next few weeks. Is there an amendment to the motion that maybe when upon approval, or is there any expedited method that would allow out of school time providers to start moving on this idea so that we can be ready for the start of school or very shortly after? And so timing just is the main comment that I have, and what does that timing look like on the Children's Trust end? And also to just encourage to bring in the Community Foundation, University of Florida, Santa Fe College, the Chamber. I think all entities and institutions have a vested interest in seeing this model go successfully. So thank you so much for your time and your consideration in it. We're standing by, ready to make this a reality and do the best we can at it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Addison. And the next meeting is on the 17th, but the motion was to refer this to Colin and come back with a recommendation. I don't know if that'll be ready for the 17th or at the August 31st meeting, but I'm sure it'll be in one of those two meetings. Colin, do you see the thing about a chat from Mary Lynn Parker about, can a copy of the letter about pods be distributed via CT?
Yes, we could send out a blast email with a link to the letter. That's fine. We'll also include it in the minutes for the next meeting.
Okay, all right,
But yes, we
thank
can
you.
do that.
Okay, anyone else?
Ken has his hand up.
Real quick on
Oh,
that
I'm
letter,
sorry,
Lee, Lee, it referenced contact tracing. The Department of Health has asked for $1,050,000 to increase their testing and tracing. And Paul indicated today in our meeting that I think he's hiring 16 or 17 nurses for the school board to facilitate that. And so we're asking that we get some sort of performance metrics back so that everyone that's tested positive can be traced within 24 hours. And so I just wanted to communicate that because that happened in the last couple of hours, which is why I was late.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, Lee.
thanks for the update. Anyone else, Colin?
Yeah, I don't see any additional
Yeah,
comments.
okay.
Yeah, I don't see any additional comments.
Okay, before we adjourn, is there anything you'd like to bring up? The next meeting dates or anything?
Yeah,
Although you already have done that.
yeah, I'll reiterate just a few things. The next meeting, the 17th, will be at 3. It'll be just like this. You'll be getting an invite tomorrow. That'll come from our new executive assistant, Ashley Morgan Daniel. The meeting after that is on the 31st. Again, it'll also be an electronic meeting. The hearings in September for the trim are very interesting. There's an executive order that gives us the authority to hold those public hearings virtually, but all other meetings have to be in person as it's read right now. That could change, I guess, if he issues another executive order. So if we do, and Bob, if I'm saying something wrong, feel free to jump in, but if we have to meet in person for some reason, we've actually reserved the school board auditorium for the meetings in September. So I want to thank our 2 school board members for assisting with that and making that available. But if not, as it stands right now, they'll be virtual, but we'll only be able to discuss the issues related to the budget. And Bob, if you're on, if I've said something wrong, correct me.
No, that's accurate.
Which is why the next meeting,
That
we
it?
want to get the procurement policies done by the 31st. So if we have to just have public hearings virtually in September, if we don't want to meet in person, we can do that.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Anything else? If not, this meeting is adjourned, and thank y'all very much. Look forward to seeing you on the 17th.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.